Hey everyone, welcome back to The Explainer. So today, we're diving straight into a topic that honestly trips up gardeners everywhere, strawberry fertilization. Whether you're a seasoned grower who's been at this for years or a complete beginner holding your very first trowel, this science-backed masterclass is for you. We're going to build your understanding completely from the ground up. No prior knowledge required. Let me ask you something. Have you ever spent literally months babying a strawberry patch only to end up with these tiny, sour, kind of mushy berries? Ah, man, it is so frustrating, right? Well, the secret to massive, sweet fruit and way healthier plants, it's all about what's going on right beneath the soil. Nailing your fertilization strategy isn't just some nice bonus, it's absolutely crucial. It's the ultimate solution to getting that perfect harvest. Okay, let's dive into this. Here is our exact roadmap for today. We're going to cover soil needs, the different types of fertilizers, exactly when and how to fertilize, how to diagnose those common mistakes, and finally, some incredible expert tips. All right, part 1, understanding strawberry soil needs. This is our foundation. So before we even think about ripping open a bag of fertilizer, we really need to understand the environment where strawberries actually want to grow. Because look, you can have the absolute best plant food in the world, but if the foundation is off, the plant simply can't eat. Strawberries thrive in well-drained, slightly acidic soil. We're talking a pH right between 5.5 and 6.5. That slight acidity is basically the key that unlocks the nutrients so the roots can absorb them. If you haven't tested your soil's pH yet, well, that's going to be your very first actionable step. Now, what's really fascinating here is the plant's actual anatomy. Unlike your deep-rooted veggies, strawberry roots are incredibly shallow. They sit right up in the top 15 to 20 centimeters of the soil. And because they're packed into such a tiny space, they just chew through the local soil nutrients. I mean, they eat fast. And they empty the pantry quickly. Because of this, they're super sensitive to any pH imbalances, meaning regular, precise nutrient replenishment is just mandatory if you want a killer crop. Moving right along to part 2, types of fertilizers. Let's look at the NPK building blocks. Okay, let's decode those 3 letters you see on literally every fertilizer package, N, P, and K. To make this super easy to visualize, think of nitrogen, the N, as the builder of the solar panels. It pushes out those vigorous green leaves that soak up the sun's energy. Phosphorus, the P, builds the foundation. It's totally vital for deep root development and triggering those early blooms. And finally, potassium, the K. This is the sweet reward. Potassium is the magic ingredient responsible for the sugar content, the flavor, and the overall quality of your berries. When you're shopping for these nutrients, you basically have 2 paths. On one hand, you've got your organics, stuff like biohumus, well-rotted compost, and wood ash. These are absolute rock stars for building up your soil structure over the long haul and keeping moisture locked in. But then, on the other hand, you have synthetics. Think of your classic 10-10-10 NPK mix, or ammonium nitrate. Synthetics are your go-to when you need precise, immediate nutrient delivery, like when your plant needs an urgent boost right now. Honestly, a lot of the most successful gardeners out there use a really thoughtful combo of both. All right, part 3, when and how to fertilize. This is all about seasonal mastery. Because having the right fertilizer, that's really only half the battle. You absolutely have to know when to apply it. The feeding cycle of a strawberry plant breaks down into 3 main phases. Step 1 is the spring awakening, usually around March. The plant is just waking up, it needs to build those solar panels we talked about, so your focus has to be heavy on nitrogen. Step 2 is the pre-bloom phase in April. Now it's getting ready for flower and fruit, so you've got to pivot. Shift that focus straight to phosphorus and potassium. And step 3 is post-harvest. Once you've picked all those delicious berries, the plant is totally exhausted. You have to replenish those nutrients so it can build up winter reserves and actually produce for you again next year. The way professional growers manage these phases really brings this to life. They use a process called fertigation, basically pumping liquid fertilizer right through a drip irrigation system. But the precise dosages have to adapt dynamically. Like during that initial leaf formation, you're pumping nitrogen-heavy starter gels. But the absolute second that plant shifts into flowering and fruiting mode, the dosages switch hard over to calcium, phosphorus, and potassium to guarantee those massive sweet berries. It's just a continuous, calculated adjustment. But hey, what happens if your plant suddenly starts showing signs of a severe deficiency and you just do not have the time to wait for root absorption? The answer is foliar feeding. This is an awesome expert trick where you spray a diluted liquid fertilizer straight onto the leaves. The leaves soak up those nutrients almost instantly, completely bypassing the shallow roots. It's a lifesaver of an emergency response, especially if you get hit with a sudden iron or micronutrient deficiency. Now, if you're sitting there wondering, is all this effort really worth it? Just consider this. We dug into some agricultural case studies and commercial farmers who executed a proper spring feeding routine, specifically using high-quality organic biohumus, boosted their final fruit yield by a staggering 30 to 50%. Yeah, up to 50%. Real-world success stories prove that this is literally the difference between getting a handful of berries and hauling in overflowing baskets. Which brings us to part 4. Common mistakes and troubleshooting. Diagnosing those deficits. Look, things don't always go according to plan, right? Even the pros have to play detective sometimes. Visual diagnosis is totally your first line of defense here. A really classic mistake is underfeeding nitrogen early in the season. You'll know you have a nitrogen deficit when you see stunted, weak growth and those older leaves start turning this sickly, pale yellow. Balanced nitrogen, on the other hand, gives you that gorgeous, vigorous, deep green growth and super strong stems. So if you spot yellowing early in the spring, boom, it's time for a quick, targeted nitrogen boost. But here's where it can get kind of tricky. Sometimes your soil is actually packed with nutrients, but your plant is still starving. Why does that happen? Extreme pH levels. Like we mentioned earlier, strawberries need that 5.5 to 6.5 sweet spot. If your soil pH gets too high, it physically blocks the plant from absorbing iron, manganese, and boron. It creates these hidden deficiencies. And if the pH is too low, it blocks your essential NPK macroelements. So if you're fertilizing heavily but still seeing weak, sad plants, stop feeding immediately and go check your soil pH. All right, our final section, part 5. Expert tips and tricks, organic recipes. Now, this is where things get really fun. Let's look at some closely guarded secrets from successful organic gardeners, starting with this totally unconventional but highly proven root-boosting yeast recipe. You just dissolve 1 kilogram of fresh baker's yeast right into 5 liters of warm water. Then you take just half a liter of that concentrate, dilute it into 10 liters of clean water, and apply half a liter per plant. Guys, the yeast acts like a massive biological stimulant. It can accelerate root growth up to 10 times. But, and this is a big but, yeast rapidly eats up potassium in the soil as it ferments. So you absolutely must follow up a yeast treatment with a dose of wood ash to replenish that lost potassium. Otherwise, your fruit is going to suffer. And here is another amazing duo that master growers just swear by: stinging nettle tea. It is an absolute powerhouse for getting a natural nitrogen boost early in the season. You just steep a kilogram of fresh nettles in hot water, let it ferment, and dilute it 1 to 10. It delivers this highly absorbable nitrogen and iron straight to the plant. Then later in the season, when it's time for that sweet reward, you can steep 1 to 2 cups of wood ash in 10 liters of water for about 24 hours. Watering with this ash tea gives the plant an incredible burst of potassium and calcium. It's actually the exact trick experts use to naturally sweeten their strawberries right before harvest. As we wrap things up today, just a quick reminder that this explainer is for informational purposes only. You know, every single garden has its own unique microclimate, unique soil composition, the whole shebang. So while this roadmap gives you a really robust scientific foundation, we definitely always recommend chatting with a local horticultural expert or your local extension office for advice that's personalized to your specific growing zone. We have covered so much ground today: the soil science, the seasonal timing, decoding those NPK building blocks, and even some killer organic recipes. You seriously have the knowledge now to totally transform your strawberry patch. So I'm going to leave you with this. Armed with this science-backed roadmap, what unique methods are you going to experiment with this season to cultivate your own perfect harvest? Seriously, don't be afraid to get your hands dirty and try something new out there. Thanks so much for learning with us today.